Hello, I'm Darren again. Today's topic is looking at why narcissistic people sometimes suggest, sometimes even insist, that their victims go to see a therapist. And this topic doesn't come from questions as such, but rather it comes from some comments that have come up a few times in the comments section. People mentioning how they were told to go and seek help by the very person who was mistreating them. So I thought it might be a topic worth looking at. So in this video, I want to look at some of the reasons why they might do this, but also how they might react whenever someone actually does go to therapy. So, if you find this topic to be interesting, please consider subscribing. Now, many of the reasons why narcissistic people might insist their victims go to therapy are rooted in their need for control, manipulation, and maintaining their self-image. Understanding these motivations can shed light on their behaviour and their typical reactions. Narcissists aren't good with responsibility and accountability, so they generally deny doing anything wrong. They also lack empathy, so either don't understand or don't care about how their behaviours affect others. They generally insist that their victim is the problem. Their victims can be frustrated, anxious, depressed, at their wits' end, and it's never anything to do with them. So the first reason they might want someone to see a counsellor is to deflect responsibility. So when their victims react badly to being mistreated, well, they might say things like, "You're crazy, you need to talk to someone." They suggest their victims' reactions are exaggerated and out of proportion to whatever is going on. They might even know the language, know the terms to use. They might say things like, "You're projecting your issues onto me." Some might even claim their victim is the narcissist for not being okay with being treated like crap. Another way they can deflect is by claiming that their victim's distress is coming from other sources. Again, it's got nothing to do with them. For instance, they might say, "You're having a rough time at work, you're just taking things out on me," or "Your mum or dad get depressed, so it must be hereditary." Secondly, suggesting therapy can be a form of gaslighting. It's a way of exerting control over their victim's thoughts and feelings. They might even frame it as a way for their victim to realize how much they're overreacting, how much they need to see reality. They have no idea what behaviour their victim is talking about. And they can even point out their victim's frustration as evidence that they have anger issues which need to be addressed. It's got nothing to do with what's causing the anger and frustration. But rather than accept any responsibility, they will find different ways of undermining their victim's self-confidence by claiming there's something wrong with them, making them doubt their own mental health or their perceptions of reality. Another reason why a narcissist might suggest their victims go to therapy is because they're very concerned with their public image. So they might frame it as if they're concerned somehow. By encouraging their victim to go to therapy, they might portray themselves as being caring and supportive. They can tell others that they're trying to help their victim, and this can enhance their image as a caring and considerate person who's maybe just having to deal with someone who has issues. And lastly, they might suggest someone go to therapy in the belief that the therapist will validate them. Narcissistic people tend to see themselves as flawless and perfect, and they expect others to see that also. So they might just be arrogant enough to believe the therapist will go along with their narrative and reinforce their perspective that the victim has serious issues that are affecting their relationship. So there are just some of the reasons why narcissistic people might push their victims into going to therapy. But what happens if they do go? Well, they may pretend to support the therapy process, at first anyway. They're glad their victim is getting the support they so clearly need. Yet all the while they could be using any information gained by the victim in therapy to try to manipulate them further. They might say things like, "I'm so glad you're getting help," but could be subtly undermining the victim's progress, maybe planting seeds of doubt and engaging in little subtle acts of provocation just to see how they react. And secondly, and I think this is the most common thing that happens, is they probably try to set the agenda for the therapy. They'll want their victim to talk about anything except what is really going on. They'll tell their victims things like, "This all comes from your childhood. Make sure you tell the therapist about your mum and dad," and so on. Narcissistic people can become quite paranoid if they feel they don't have control over something or someone. So they might even ask for detailed accounts of things that are being discussed. You might hear things like, "You'd better not be discussing me in there." Because remember, their public image is very important to them. Now, in some cases, they might be attending sessions with their victim, so they might try to influence what the victim says during the sessions, try to keep the focus of the sessions on the victim being the problem. But if they're not attending the sessions, well, some may even attempt contacting the therapist. Now, it could be to try to gain information about what's being discussed, which they're not going to get, by the way. Or to give information about their victim, everything that's wrong with them, their history, and all the bad things they do. They may even try to tell the therapist what to focus on, but one way or another, they will try to control it. Next, even though they were the ones sent their victim to see a counsellor, if they see the victim is finding it helpful, well, they might fear their sense of control is being threatened. So they might try to discredit either the therapy process or the therapist. Narcissistic people generally wouldn't want anyone to validate their victim's feelings and experiences, let alone a therapist. So if they feel threatened, if they think the counsellor isn't colluding with their narrative, well, they might say things like, they're the wrong therapist for you. You need someone who can go deep into your childhood. That's where all your issues lie. Or they might try to discredit them with, what does your therapist know? What are their qualifications? Or, your counsellor is a narcissist. Lastly, if their victim does begin to gain clarity and confidence from the therapy, well, a narcissist might try to escalate their manipulation tactics. Now, this can include love bombing, promises of a wonderful future, yet another wonderful future, gaslighting, or other forms of emotional blackmail and manipulation to try to regain control. But when the victim does start to recognize the patterns in the narcissistic person's behaviour and learns how to be assertive, responds rather than reacts, maybe starts to set boundaries, well, the narcissistic person might claim the therapy is making them worse, not better. And they'll do what they can to discourage their victim. For instance, they might just become dismissive. Oh, right, did your counsellor teach you that? Or, what lies have you told them about me this week? And even though they sent the victim to therapy, they might claim the victim is crazy because in their head, only crazy people go to therapy. In some cases, they can become very upset, claim their victim is lying about them to the therapist and their world is falling apart. In extreme cases, they may react with anger. They might even become threatening. So if you think about it, the victim is getting help, just not the help the narcissist wants them to get, and the therapist isn't colluding with their narrative. So in summary, whenever a narcissistic person insists someone go to see a therapist, from their perspective, it could be because there's something wrong with their victim. They're not a version of themselves the narcissist wants them to be. They can't keep up with a narcissist's ever-changing demands and their constant rejections. They have a problem with being lied to, neglected, even abused. They don't worship the narcissist enough. They're constantly anxious and depressed. And when they send someone to therapy, it's usually a way to deflect blame, maintain control, and preserve their image. It's really just another way to manipulate their victim. They hope it's going to change the victim's perspective to be more in line with theirs. Which is why they try to set the agenda for the therapy, tell their victim what to say and what not to say, and they can become uncomfortable, maybe even panic, if they think they're being discussed. And when their victim begins to gain independence and insight through the therapy, well, a narcissist can react with a range of behaviours, from subtle manipulation to overt hostility. But ultimately, if a narcissistic person wants you to go to therapy, it's because from their perspective, it's not me, it's you. So that's a brief outline of why a narcissist might insist their victims go to therapy and how they might react. Now, as always, if there's anything I've missed, anything you might like to add, please feel free to use the comments section or some interesting conversations start from these videos. But if you found this topic to be interesting, please consider subscribing, and until next time, thanks for watching. You know, if people don't want you talking about their bad behaviour, maybe they shouldn't behave badly.